everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to be in this interview. My name is Mario. My last name is Lozano, L-O-Z-A-N-O, and I'm a junior. I share the name with my father. His name is Mario Sr. So I get that asked a lot, and I tell my friends I'm a Mexican. So technically I'm Mexican, but since we're mixed with so much stuff, I say I'm a Mexican. So I come from, my mother's from Portugal, and my dad is a Sicilian Spaniard. So that's the closest thing we can get to our family tree. So track is my #1 sport. In 1982, I was an Olympic hopeful in the 800 meters. Back then out of high school, I ran a 151, which was right after high school in the summer. I ran a 153, then a 151 right after that. And so I went to Long Beach State on a track scholarship, and I trained for the '84 Olympics. I overtrained because the school canceled the track program, so we went on our own, and I ended up overworking out, stretch fracturing my ankles, and I never made it out of the Olympic trials. But I still love track. It's my #1 sport, besides basketball, which I've also played in a semi-pro leagues too. Mario Lozano is I'm an industrial artist. So I went to Long Beach State for industrial design. So I'm a finished illustrator. I spent 8 years in automotive design school at Long Beach State in their industrial design program. And while I was there, one of my instructors, he had a student that had graduated and opened up a race shop. And he asked me if I would be interested in working at the race shop. So I would work part-time at the race shop, and then I would go to school full-time. So it was a really good experience. I started Long Beach State in '82. This was probably around '86, '87 when I started working for FabTech Racing right here in Gardena, California. We worked on IndyCar stuff. We did a little bit of Formula One stuff back then, but we worked on high-end race car stuff. Fabrication was like no other here out of a small shop on 130th in Gardena. And the owner's name was Matt Weiss, which is the gentleman that taught me how to weld. And so I learned so much from him, and I've just continued with his teachings. It started when I went to FabTech Racing in Gardena. What was my boss, Matt Weiss, he said, "Have you ever welded?" And I said, "No, I've never welded." And he says, okay, he asked me 2 questions. He says, "What hand do you sign your checks with?" And I said, "My right hand." He said, "What hand do you brush your teeth with?" I said, "My right hand." He goes, "Okay, that's the hand that's going to hold the rod." So in reality, when you grab a rod, you already have the dexterity because you've already used your right hand a lot. So the left hand to hold the torch is called the idiot hand. All it has to do is follow. This is where the precision comes, is where you lay down, you're into the puddle to stack those beads, your precision as you walk that puddle. Actually, since I've spent so much time in automotive design, I have a lot of ideas. I go to SEMA a lot to see what the trends are, what the color trends are. What are people fabricating? How do they solve a problem? It's just an air pipe, but how do they create the air pipe? What materials do they use? What size do they use? How do they weld it? So a lot of that I just take in. I take a lot of pictures of a lot of cars and a lot of ideas where people have spent a lot of money to designers to design something. And you can have 10 solutions to one problem, that you need to figure out. And each one comes up with their own artistic view of it. I like that. So I have a lot of ideas, and then it furthers when I see people build $3, $4 million cars at SEMA. There's rarely a car that people haven't spent $300,000 and upwards into the millions that they spent to build a car. And I get ideas from that too. TSR, so my nickname is Little Ghetto. So that was given to me by a crib gang that I won't mention their names, out of Compton in the early '80s. So I was doing work for them out of my parents' garage, and modifying and doing things for cars. And you know, I mimicked their language, I mimicked their words, you know, so they really liked me. And so they since I was little and there were some big guys, they called me Little Ghetto. So when I opened my shop, I wanted to keep that name, but I couldn't put Ghetto Speed. So when they would say it, they would use 2 syllables, Ghetto. So I kept the toe part of it and added speed. So Toe Speed Racing is my full name, and I shortened it to TSR. In 1977, my neighbor, Scott, bought a 510. It was Army Green, and it was a 1970 Army Green. So I was coming back from school, from Nimitz Junior High, and I saw this little car pass by, and I was like, whoa, I like that. I like the color. 1970s baby poop. If you look at the mustards, you look at all the colors, they were taken from baby poop. And so I like that green. And so he made a turn on my street, and I'm like, and I ran. And I noticed that he parked 4 houses from me, and I'm like, oh, that's Scott. So he parked it, and I started talking to him, and he says, hey, come by on the weekend. I'm gonna change the stock carburetor to dual carburetors. I'm like, what's that? He says, I'll show you. So in 1977, on that first weekend in July, we changed the stock carburetor to dual carburetors. I learned a lot. And for year after year, he would get different cars. He crashed some old lady, totaled that car out. But by then, I was already helping him with whatever 510 that he got. And after that, we started seeing flared cars and BRE style cars, and I was already hooked. So the first conversion was done in Japan. I forget his name. The second conversion was being done in Australia. And I'm getting old, and I'm trying to think of his name. It'll come to me, and I apologize if he sees this video and I can't remember your name. But when he started his conversion, I had started mine. And it was like, who's gonna get it done first? And actually, he got it done before me. So that I know of, I'm the 3rd guy to do the conversion, but I'm the 1st guy in North America to do the SR20 conversion. Now, I've gone through version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4.0. I've changed the kit quite a few times, and I made it better, you know, through the years. The SR20, it was a no-brainer. You went from carburetors to fuel injection, no-brainer. You went from a single cam to twin cam. You went from non-turbo to turbo. I went from my L series that I was getting like 15 miles to the gallon to 32 miles to the gallon. And then on the 2.2 liter, I was getting 24 miles to the gallon on my Tomei 2.2. But on my regular turbo, if I cruised, I would get 30 to 32 miles to the gallon. And you cannot beat that and have the power. Actually, the gentleman that was in Australia is my buddy Jeff Shoesmith. So he built a really gorgeous turquoise blue car, and very, very talented man. So you can find him on the web, and I'm sure he's got an Instagram. But yeah, Jeff Shoesmith. I want to make sure I get that name right. We got a motor, and we put it in, and we didn't know what to do with the ECU because we were told that the ECU wasn't going to work. So this was 1993, okay? And so we ended up getting a, I forget the name of the company that made the aftermarket ECU setup, and we put a trigger wheel, we had it cut, machined. I machined all kinds of stuff to make it work, but we got the car running. And that was the first SR next to my blue car, which by then I had figured out that we could use the factory one and send it out and get it programmed. So yeah, it was really cool. The car was fast. There was nothing else like it on the street. Mind you, I was building Hondas. So we were building Hondas and racing them in the street. And so we go back, you know, to Gardena and Torrance, down to Compton and Florence and Maine, and Maria Street, you know, racing Hondas. So we were racing 510s too, but it was different. Well, I was racing the 510s in 1980, 81, 82. 1982, I got busted and they took my license away for street racing. And so they took my license, so it was my first year at Long Beach State. So I didn't have a car to take to school, and I didn't have any more money, so I took the bus. While I was on the bus, going to school, I saw it. Orange Datsun 510, And I ran to the bus driver and said, yo, stop. He goes, no, I'm not gonna stop. I gotta get off now. And he says, no, you're gonna have to wait till, and I saw the car go into Lot B at Long Beach State. And so I spent 4 hours looking for that car in that lot, because there were 60,000 students at the time. That was 1982. And I finally found this car. I put a note on it. I said, I'd like to meet you. I'm a Datsun lover, blah, blah, blah. I have a 510 too. And then his name was Todd Kaneko. So he has the orange 510 that we race in Time Attack that Billy Johnson drives. And so we became great friends. We're friends to this day. We're a bunch of old farts now, but I tell you, the love of 510s has transferred all them years, and we still love the car. Iconic styling, boxy shape. You can't miss it when you see a 510. You see a 510 in a cover, and you know it's a 510. He goes, that's a 510. How do you know? Because you just know the car. They'll show you a little corner of it. That's a 510. It doesn't matter. So the car is awesome. It races. It's so fast. If you look at videos of Laguna, that car can run. We think it's capable of running 130s at Laguna. We ran 138s, 136s, and I think the next time out with the new setup, I think we could run 130s. The car's absolutely awesome fast. Billy Johnson gave me a ride on the video that you see on YouTube, and they said, he goes, I can only take one person. Who is it? Todd says, you got to take Mario. He had spent so much time working on the car, and I was like, okay. Well, I didn't need to pee before I got in the car, but trust me, after a few laps, I had to go. When we stopped, I jumped out and I ran. They're like, what happened to him? He's got to go pee, because it's a rush to be in a car. We were behind a Subaru, a 650 horsepower Subaru, and it's like he's slowing us down. Get out the way. And he got out the way and we were gone. He drifted through all the turns. I mean, completely sideways. I could see the road ahead, and he's over here, and he's telling me, what do you think, Mario? I'm like, it's awesome, because it's crazy fast. You know, you're pulling 130, right, you know, and accelerating past, you know, the bridge that's there. So it's hard to beat a 510. You know, it's a good balanced car. It stops good. It accelerates good, and it handles good. But you can still go get groceries in it. It should be a nice ride. The car should be set up so good that your girlfriend or your wife doesn't mind riding in it. And that's my goal. People think, what's your goal? To get my customer's wife in the car. And the last few cars I've been building, their wives are like, I love it. Let's go to shows. When are we taking your 510 out again? Because the suspensions we're doing now, the Brembo brakes, it feels like a 2022 Camry, but when it starts going around turns, it feels like a Formula One car. They're like, wow, it's on rails. That's what a proper car is. You can drive it. If you want to get in it and go to Shasta, go to Oregon, Washington, wherever, Texas, you just keep putting gas. It's a reliable car. It's fun to drive. It's enjoyable. So think about that if you guys are going to start a build. I'm hoping that I've influenced a lot of builders. I like to build really cool parts that don't exist, and eventually it gets copied, which is good, because you're copying a product that I built. When I built the radiators, I tested the radiators. We went up to the desert, 113 degrees, and drove for 8 hours straight in 113 degree weather. And the hottest it got was 204. And I said, done. This is the core. I had done a bunch of math with Todd and a few thermal engineers, and I knew what I needed to get the radiator to be. I knew the width and the height and the thickness. A lot of people have misconceptions, and they get thicker is better, and don't realize that thicker is not better. So you have an intercooler in the front, and you got your speed of air coming, and now you hit an intercooler, okay? For it to be efficient, it has to go through, transfer that heat away, but now you got to go through the radiator. So you go too thick of a radiator, it goes to the intercooler, then it gets lost in the radiator, and it heat soaks. So all of a sudden, yeah, you got a lot of coolant in there, but it's the air is not pushing that heat up. The thinner it is, the more efficient it is as it hits the radiator, hits the intercooler, goes through there, hits the radiator, and goes through that. Now you got an efficient system. So the thinner radiator made a lot of sense. We tried thick ones. We even tried the same thickness, longer, and we couldn't get the car to go above 165 degrees. So we knew that we had too much radiator. So we necked it down to 12 and 3/4 inches. That was all testing. I won't sell anything unless it's tested. I won't sell any part unless it's tested for a long time. It has to go through my testing for it to pass. And you know you're getting a proven part. Save your money. Save your money, number one. Don't start a build without having money. You're gonna take it apart, you're gonna spend the little money you saved, and it's gonna sit for years. Don't do that. Save your money. Buy the components that you want. Beg your girlfriend or your wife or your mom and dad to give you some space somewhere and buy all the parts. Buy them, stack them. I have wives that call me, when is my husband gonna start his build? Because the spare room is packed with parts. You know, we're gonna have a baby, we're gonna need the room. Great, we're gonna, you know. By then, you've got all your components. Now you take your car apart, you prep the car, weld the engine compartment, paint, you know, fit your radiator, fit your intercooler, paint it, and start assembling the car. Now you got all the parts there to assemble. You're a weekend warrior. Every weekend, get your son or your daughter and your wife to help you and become a family affair. You put a car together, a family puts it together, it's gonna be enjoyable. But you got the parts to do it because you saved the money, bought the parts, then you took your car apart, now you're building it. It'll go a lot faster. A lot of people are impatient. There's a lot of cheap parts on a lot of 510s. I hate to say it, I'm not gonna mention names, but because the parts are available doesn't mean they're great. So on my wall, I have a lot of sayings. So these sayings, I've heard them. So if you came today and told me that saying, the next day in the morning, if I hear that and I sleep on it and I wake up and it's the first thing that I remember, it goes on the wall. So 95% of those sayings on the wall have been done that way. So here's what happens. You buy a part and you don't spend good money on it and the part fails or doesn't work properly, you got to spend money again to get the right part. So guess what? Spend it once, cry once. So you buy a good brake kit, saves your life. You buy a brake kit that doesn't work good, now you're trying to sell it to get the money to buy the proper kit. I start at the top. I keep telling people, don't buy what you see. Don't be impatient about your build. This is your life that you're building a car. Take your time. Buy proper components that are going to be proper and save your life. So buy the best and only cry once. A year from now, you're going to forget about that and you're going to be benefiting from all the good parts that you bought because you're enjoying your car that's not breaking down. Think about it.